Okay, so this week we're going to continue to look at how much governments should encourage equality, especially liberal governments. So, equality is a word that we've heard in association with communism, collectivism, socialism, and often those words are considered bad words by a lot of the liberal people out there. So, these would be people who like capitalism, profit motive, that kind of thing. They want freedom. So a lot of people think that when governments try to encourage equality, what they're actually doing is reducing freedom. But modern liberals, of course, argue that actually, when you try to encourage some equality, you can make people more free. So let's look at one of the new ideas that is floating around out there. And I want you to really think about it and decide if you want to get behind this idea. Do you like it or do you not like it? Do you think it's a bad idea? Okay, so let's look at what this is. So this new idea is called universal basic income. And when I say new, I don't mean like in the last 5 years. It's relatively new. It was floated around in the 70s, and then people sort of forgot about it, and now people are talking about it again, and especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, where people are looking for help from their governments, and we're seeing mass unemployment and temporary depression of the economy. People are talking more and more about this. And so let's look at it in detail. So, what is universal basic income? So, this is just a regular monthly cash payment that everybody would get. Okay. So, it's intended to be universally applied. All right. So, it's a basic amount. It's not meant to give people enough to go on a vacation or even buy a house. It's just intended to kind of fill in that immediate need. So you'd be able to buy your groceries with this. You'd be able to probably pay a low amount of rent. It would be helpful in those ways. Most people believe it would be intended to replace other forms of social assistance we already have in place. So if we look at the pictures, Canada already has employment insurance. So it would replace employment insurance. We wouldn't need to contribute to employment insurance. We wouldn't need to apply for employment insurance. If we lose our job, it would just be a cash payment you get anyway, okay? It would also replace the child tax benefit. So right now, lots of people get a monthly amount in their bank accounts from the government, depending on how many kids they have and how much money they earn. So this would replace that. It would also replace things like disability welfare. So if people are extremely disabled and can't work, they would get this instead. Okay, so as I've already explained, we have lots of ways that we support people here in Canada. Lots of different programs are available to people who either lose their job, are disabled, have lots of kids and not a lot of money. Um, we provide through our taxes, actually, charities also receive some support from the government. So, really important charities like the food bank, charities that provide housing to the homeless, they get money from our taxes to give those services. So we already provide caregiver tax credits for people who stay home and take care of their moms or their dads when they're old, or people who take care of a disabled child. So there's lots of tax incentives or credits given to people who do that work and can't work outside the home. We also offer through taxes daycare subsidies for low income people who can't afford to put their kids in daycare at the regular rate. We offer old age pension to seniors. This is really important because not every senior has retirement savings. We offer maternity leave, of course, and paternity leave. So women and men get sort of some money monthly if they're at home with their baby. We also offer things like student grant programs to low income students. This is money they don't have to pay back, but they do have to apply for it. And we give housing subsidies for people who are low income as well. So we already offer quite a bit of what we would call social assistance. So here's some arguments for and against universal basic income. So a lot of people believe on the con side that this idea is radical and it's too expensive because you're giving everybody the same amount of money. They also believe that it might reduce people's incentive to go and get a better job or to work at all. Some people think that it's going to lead to, middle class and wealthy people getting even richer because why should they get this universal basic income? And some people also believe that in a liberal society, inequality is a natural thing. And without it, we're not incentivized to work harder and gain wealth. That profit motive is what drives us in a capitalist system. But some people on the other side, on the pro side, believe that actually capitalism is what has led to a huge wealth gap. We have massively rich people like Jeff Bezos of Amazon and other people like that. Um, and we have really poor people who can't seem to get out of poverty. And so this income disparity is really a negative outcome of capitalism, and it's becoming worse. And so some people believe UBI is the only way to fight against that. Some people also think, of course, rather than offering all those many programs Canada already has and other countries have too, this would be more efficient. If you just get rid of the ones that UBI would cover, then wow, that's easier to roll out. The other thing that lots of people think is, hey, you know what? Just like that article we read last week about charity and social justice, um, maybe UBI would reduce our reliance on charities and it would bring actual justice to people who are living in poverty. Maybe UBI would get rid of our homelessness. Maybe homelessness can be eradicated by rolling out these payments to everyone. It would also help people. Some people think that a lot of people who can't apply for employment insurance, and especially during the COVID pandemic, we've seen this happen. People who are precariously employed, maybe they're working for the gig economy, like they run Airbnb or couch surfing, or they are Uber drivers or skip the dishes, stuff like that. People who are employed in that way can't apply for EI. They're not eligible, right? So UBI would help them take care of their basic needs. Might also help caregivers, people who are at home looking after children, can't access EI either, but in a time like this during a pandemic, that money is not going to flow to their household, so it's really important that they access it. Also, we're looking at college and university becoming really expensive, and so rather than giving grants to students, why can't we just give them basic income? Some people also believe that automation and tech is changing so fast. It's changing our jobs. It's changing the employment market out there. And so unskilled workers who don't have a university degree are finding it really difficult to find employment that is reliable. And because we're facing this massive change in the economic system, maybe UBI could help fix that. Here's a couple other arguments. So I think the first one's pointing out that we're already investing a ton of money in social assistance. Okay. So obviously, just with these couple of figures, we know that the Child Canada benefit and old age security is already at $73 billion, okay, for the country. That's a lot of money just for those two programs. We're not even talking about EI, we're not talking about the other ones. UBI, Universal Basic Income, would cost $43 billion in the first year. So there you go. So that just puts it into perspective. It sounds expensive, but really when you compare it to the other programs we already have, that's not really an argument against it. It's not a solid argument. But another argument against UBI is, why should we give it to the wealthy? Why should we give it to the middle class? They're doing just fine. Sure. So you can see in the second quote in the middle here, well, obviously we would give it to everybody, but then we can tax it back because income is taxable, just like you learned about last week. If our income is taxable, we're going to tax UBI too. So people just pay it back if they don't need it. Okay. Also, in the third quote here at the bottom, it says, gosh, when we rolled out employment insurance and other sort of benefits like this, it was the 50s, it was the 60s, right? People had regular jobs. They made way more income than we do now. Every year, when we adjust for inflation, their jobs provided more for them. They had pensions. Most people had pensions in their jobs. And now we don't live like that anymore. Most people have to save for their own retirement. Most people live paycheck to paycheck. So we need to adjust our social assistance system to reflect that new reality. So Spain right now is rolling out basic income. Um, in the wake of the pandemic, they realized that there were so many gaps in their system, they just needed to get it done. And so that's what they've decided to do. But lots of other countries have tried basic income also. You can see on this map, the little dots show where UBI has been attempted. Now, this could have been just an experiment. Some countries just did experiments to see if this would work out, and some of these are in place. So lots of people believe the largest argument for UBI is that the work landscape is changing so much. And because university and college is so expensive, people can't afford to go to college all the time. And so they're stuck in these jobs like retail or truck driving or secretary jobs or factory jobs. And these jobs are going to disappear or they're already disappearing. Amazon is huge. We don't always shop for everything in a store anymore. That's reducing the need for people in retail settings to work. Farm labor is changing. So 50 years ago, people would be needed during the planting season to go plant or the harvest season to go harvest. But roboticization and automation technology is changing those jobs. They don't need people to do that anymore. Okay? Transportation is changing. We know that self-driving cars are on the way. Okay, we know that's going to change. So without these minimum wage or lower paying unskilled work jobs, what are people going to do for work? Okay, so let's look at the other option. So UBI is one way to go, but some people think that there's better ways to help people out, okay? There's better solutions out there. So a lot of the problems that we see today about the wealth disparity, the wealth gap, we see minimum wages not keeping up with inflation, we see daycare costs are soaring, we see university costs are out of control. We see that women, although they're making gains and getting some maternity benefits, men aren't seeing those same benefits. So the things aren't being applied across the board, which makes it really hard to secure childcare. So what if we just take care of those issues? What if, there's other ways to help people out? So should we increase minimum wage? Should we tax people's wealth, meaning like what they own? Do they have a yacht? Should we tax that every year? Do they have a fancy car? Should we tax that every year? You know, do they have lots of stocks in their company? Should we tax that? Should daycare be subsidized? Can we just give it to everybody? We can pay for that. Can we give people free college? Should we just supplement 2 years worth of college and get everybody a free education so they're better workers? They can get better jobs. And should we increase paternity and maternity benefits, maybe make them longer so that people, if they don't have free daycare, they're not forced to pay for that. So, anyway, there's lots to think about. I want you to think about this and I want you to do the assignment, really think about what we learned last week, with taxes and things like that. How should governments encourage more equality? Should they encourage it at all? What do you think about UBI? I want to hear what you think.